Hello, I'm Kirsten Burke. Welcome to Data Endures Tech Talk. Well, I'm normally joined by our Chief Technology Officer, Shaheen Peruz. This month we're doing something a little different. While we won't be joining you live, we are featuring an excerpt from a recent Tech Talk. And when it comes to cybersecurity, it's all about time. It's about an organization's ability to go on offense to take the critical time advantage away from cyber adversaries. And in 2021, this is more important than ever. We've got a wildly distributed workforce and an ever-expanding edge, and organizations need help. Central to this strategy is XDR, Extended Detection and Response. In theory, XDR offers next-level threat detection and response, collecting and automatically correlating data across multiple security layers and tools, so threats can be detected faster and security analysts can improve investigation and response times. In short, it gives the good guys the time advantage. So this month, we're featuring an excerpt from a recent Tech Talk where we went in depth about XDR. We talked about what it is, what it isn't, and why organizations are rightfully so confused. We also provided a preview of Data Endures Dexter's solution. It's a timely feature because Dexter is now ready for prime time, so we wanted to take the opportunity to share it with you. So we hope you sit back, enjoy the special feature, and we'll be back next month live.
Everybody's claiming they do XDR, which is really detection and response across your network, your endpoints, your users, all your platform. What's really happening, though, is that a lot of the EDR players are calling themselves XDR, when in reality, they are not doing anything but endpoint detection and response. And it's a new moniker that they can tag onto themselves. And we are announcing our XDR offering early in 2021. I'm lovingly calling it Dexter. Kirsten and I are fighting over that, but Dexter is coming, and it's the notion is that you have to have network detection and response. You have to have managed detection and response. You have to have endpoint detection and response. You have to have DNS protection and response, and you have to have email security and response. If you're not doing all of those layers, you can't call yourself XDR because all of those are vectors in the environment. So it's that same thing where it's very easy to go pick a single partner that says they do this new cool thing called cloud. But as we've seen over the last couple of decades, cloud has evolved and changed and has many different perspectives to it, and clouds have come and gone, and we're left with the top three clouds today. And the same kind of thing will happen with XDR. It's an evolution. We have a post right now on LinkedIn, if you go look it up, that talks about the evolution of endpoint security through to XDR. And I think it's critical that when you're evaluating technologies, you don't let the exhaustion or vendor exhaustion, more specifically, accelerate your decision-making process. Look at companies like us who take best-in-breed technologies, not from the same vendor, and integrate them together and bind them into a managed service that does what the intention of that service or offering or capability is supposed to do, and does it in the right way with the right tools, and then doesn't lock you into a manufacturer, because that becomes the burden of the managed service provider. If our endpoint detection and response tools aren't best in breed next year, then we will swap them out in a heartbeat and at no cost to our customers. We need to make sure we're delivering the best service possible, so you're not going out and looking for other vendors or manufacturers. I had an interesting customer conversation last week, which was you recommended this particular endpoint solution to us, and now you're telling us you have your own EDR offering. And it was 3 years ago we recommended that solution, and now you're offering your own EDR offering, and it's not powered by that solution. So how on earth can I trust that you're not going to just switch it out on me again? And I said, but that's exactly the point. The landscape is shifting. These vendors are leapfrogging each other's in capability and efficacy. And if you own the tool, if you purchase the tool and you're maintaining it yourself, you have to continuously do the research to make sure that tool is still doing what it should be doing and is best in breed in its category. In contrast, our EDR offering, I'm not selling a tool. I'm selling you a service that is endpoint detection and response. And the tool that powers that endpoint detection and response may change over time, but you're still going to get the most effective endpoint detection and response solution in the market. And that's really the shift that I try to get many of our customers and our listeners to think about is you shouldn't be building a research and development team to find out which product's the right product. That's a waste of your time. That doesn't help you sell one more product. You should focus your energies on how to make your customers' experience better, how to make your salespeople's experience better, so that you can drive to the bottom line of your company directly and leverage commodity services like what Data Endure is offering. We are offering enterprise capable services that any large enterprise would build themselves, but in a commodity subscription pricing model.
So, in hearing you talk about this just now, one thing that kept coming to my mind and back to this concept of digital resilience, and in particular what we saw this year, which was people having to move very fast and accommodate a lot of change quickly. The thought that keeps coming back to my mind is time, right? Whether it's time to value, meaning we got to make sure our people can work tomorrow in a very different place, or whether it's time to detect, or whether it is recovery time. When you think about this whole realm of cyber resilience to business continuity, time is such a huge factor. And the time that it takes for someone to have to try to figure it all out and implement it and make it happen. When I think about Data Endure, one of the things beyond providing assurance, selling assurance to organizations that work with us, we're also selling the value of time and the time that they get back in all of those different realms. What would you say about that?
The only thing that is fixed in life is time. Everything else is a commodity. The only thing you can't get back, you can't get more of, you can't do anything of is time. So any solution, and we talk about our services being all about time. It's all about giving time back to our customers. Um, Anything you can do to not use that specific fixed asset of time in the wrong areas is going to help you accelerate those areas that need that time. And that's really the value of what we bring to the table in terms of our managed security services. There is there's nothing that we do that any organization out there couldn't replicate. Given the time, money,
Mm-hmm.
and resources, they would be able to build what we did. The question I put out there is, why would you want to? And what that rather than doing that, look at the time to value for your users and your customer community and how you can get your customers things more quickly, how you can generate product more quickly and efficiently, and how you can get your employees to do their job from anywhere more effectively in a secure way. And that's really what our Dexter offering, or today we call it Forfecta, is really bringing to market.
So as we wrap for our last tech talk of the year, um, forward thinking, 2021, quick thoughts about where we go next.
So I'm a big believer in continuous improvement, and in that context, there's while we spent a lot of cycles on the controls this year on how to protect ourselves, and I don't mean Data Endure, I mean the world.
Mm-hmm.
We The world has really shifted to, holy cow, my edge is distributed. I need to put new controls in place to protect that distributed edge. What that didn't do is it didn't really come with a continuous improvement model, which is the controls are there for protection, but the controls aren't there for closing gaps. So compliance is an area that we need to think about. So we have now put new controls in place. So all of the compliance that we thought about before, which means, a user can't connect to the network unless they X, Y, or Z, that has changed. So now the compliance has to change to match that. But also things like vulnerability management. What we used to use for patch management isn't necessarily going to work now that people are working out of their home offices. What we used to use for software distribution may not work because of the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, if I flip on my CTO hat and remove my CISO hat for a second, some of the things we're bringing to market for 2021 is continuous configuration management, which is really designed to close that gap I just talked about. But then we're also looking at secure access, secure edge, which is basically providing firewalls as code as opposed to having to worry about the physical infrastructure. What if the firewall protected every end user no matter where they are instead of having to be behind a physical location? So some of the things we look at, which customers should be looking at, is following some of the models that Amazon put in place, the concept of security groups, which is ultimately microsegmentation, and taking microsegmentation to heart in the notion of how we go about thinking about our distributed networks going forward, moving the network into a as a code or in the cloud offering as opposed to the traditional routers, switches, firewalls that we used to think about. And then ultimately, the business continuity conversation. So if your backups have not changed and evolved to meet the way the world is shifting, being able to protect your Office 365, G Suite, Salesforce, as well as your ERP system that's on premise, then you've got to reevaluate what you're doing for backups. If you're today using 6 different products to back up your environment, now you've got a huge increase in um, uh, defects, if you will, that can happen because your team doesn't understand all 6 of those products. So business continuity is, I think, the next area to start putting some attention into. Ransomware happens. The ransomware market keeps growing. It's targeted in 2021 to be $6 trillion impacted businesses. So if you don't have a solid business continuity and disaster recovery plan in place, there is the risk that ransomware will impact you in 2021.